Thanks for coming. I suspect that the nature of this presentation, unless you're actively looking for a new solution or you know that you will be looking for something in the near future, this is something that you can pull off the shelf later on, right, and look at it when it's relevant when you're going to look for a product. But one of the things Michelle and I have talked about is stripping some of these files down that I've used and putting them out there on the copy and paste thing that we're talking about, right, where you can utilize some of this for your own environment and maybe even map it to RFPs for other types of software as well. So my name's Monty Combs. I am the Director of Systems and Services at Brown University. I've been at Brown University for 15 years. And been Director of Systems and Services since 2007. And I'm going to run through the IWMS selection process that we went through. So what you're looking at up on the screen now, I'm going to start with this. This is after we went through the whole RFP process and after we went through the demonstrations. I had the whole team just go back, and while it was fresh in their minds, yep, no problem. While it was fresh in their minds, I asked everybody, go back and just tell me your choices, first, second, third, fourth, and write some comments about each one of those, your choices. And I took all of that input from all of those users. There's 28 people that contributed to this on this stage of it. And I put it into this word cloud. And I thought that this was really fascinating, this word cloud, because it kind of really summarized all the different things that we were thinking about. Because if you look on there, you can see reference to BIM, because we had constituencies from all the different areas of facilities management, plus on-campus folks, our operations folks on campus for finance and for payroll and for accounts payable, et cetera. You'll see IoT is on there. You'll see some of the words I thought they're interesting. There's like although, so people made their selection, but they qualified it. They said, this was my first choice, although I did really like this one, or although they didn't have this. And so it was really interesting, but the frequency of the words is depicted by the size of the word on the cloud, so as far as how often the word came up in the comments that were submitted. Okay, so what I'll be running through is, this is the presentation that is not designed for me to present to you. This is the actual presentation that I gave and put together to the selection team. So I didn't change it at all. I added a couple little comments in it from some feedback that I received, but that's it. But this is actually what was presented to the 30 people that were involved in the evaluation. And then once we selected a product and were able to put forward a name, then this was what was presented to the administration to make sure that they were on board with it, that they were going to fund everything, and that this was becoming a university-wide project. And that's what we used, this exact same presentation for administration as well. So again, as I just said, the selection team, this was presented to the selection team in December of last year. And the whole outcome, the agenda for that meeting was, I want to outline to everybody what the objective of the meeting was, all right? Run through the whole process that everybody had been through and that we had gone through as a team, just to remind everybody where we had been, where we were going. Review the scoring results, and then get into some discussion points. And really what it was about was, what's the final product, and can we all get agreement on it? So the objective was, I wanted to leave that meeting in December having picked the final product and have everybody accept it. And that's key, was the acceptance piece, because if you have half the team that wanted something different, now we're not getting everybody committed to this big rollout that we're about to embark on. So this dates back. This is a very lengthy process. We knew that we had to replace, we were running Famous, we still are on Famous, FAMIS. And we're on an old version of it. It's in-house, it's on our own servers. And Famous was acquired by Accruent, and they started developing a cloud version of the product, and it's a completely different product. And we kept following that product and watching the development of it and hoping that it would meet our needs, And we weren't seeing the development that we really needed on that new product. So we kept waiting and waiting. Finally, we said we got to start making a move because our version of Famous is getting really old. So in 2015, start to compile what are all the options that are available to us out there in the marketplace. And it's remarkable how many are out there. I mean, there's hundreds of solutions out there. But, you know, I said, if we're going to look at this, we're going to look at everything and make sure that we evaluate all the possibilities and make sure we find the best fit for Brown University. So if you get that big list and you start to distill it down to really what's an enterprise level solution or candidate, we get down to this list here. How does that look? Yeah. So you can see there's a lot of products on there. And meanwhile, while this list was being compiled, a lot of things were happening. You know, Accruent was swallowing up other companies, and other ones were, you know, Trimble and Centerstone and, right, Manhattan. All these products are getting swallowed up by others, and so you don't know what's going to change. And I just found out yesterday that Accruent was acquired. Yesterday, they just announced it. So a bigger fish came along and swallowed up Accruent now. That just came out yesterday, breaking news, so interesting. So you can see a pretty long list here, but these are the ones that were initial candidates that we probably should evaluate or look at to you know, consider evaluating further. Naturally, for us, being in the Ivy Leagues, the very first question that everybody asks in administration is, well, what are our peers doing? That's the first question they always ask whenever you want to do something. What's everybody else doing? So this, at the time, this is what our peers were doing. And we meet as a group. The Ivy has an Ivy Tech group that meets once a year, and we keep track of what everybody else is using and how they're using the tools. So this was compiled from those meetings. This is from January 2016. You can see here, Dartmouth College at the time was using Accruent, Famous as well. They have since selected Plan-On. And that's what they're implementing now. We have Jen here who worked at Dartmouth and was heavily involved with the selection process for Dartmouth. And I have to give kudos to Jen because she helped me a lot through this process because she shared her RFP and the process that they were going through. And I contacted many different schools, and everybody was very forthcoming. There was yeah, sure, we'll send you our RFP. We'll send you whatever we have. And, you know, using tools from other universities. It's a very sharing group that we're part of in this organization. So, but you can see this helps distill down who the major players are in the market. And, you know, I highly respect some of my peers at these other institutions. And, you know, I look at what they're using and talk to them and how's it going. And you know, one that kept coming up was Maximo, right? That's the best one out there. If you want asset management, they're the king, right? That's who you want to go with. So, you know, that was a strong contender for us. So I'll talk about that some more. So the next step in the process was, again, we're in the spring of 2016 now. I just figured, okay, I'm going to grab a couple of my colleagues. We're going to call up a couple of these companies. I'll invite them in. I'll give them each 3 hours, let them show us what they have, and we know what we're looking for, right? Be pretty straightforward. We should be able to identify what's a good product. And that was how we approached it, or how I approached it, thinking after those demos that I should have a pretty good sense of which one we wanted. Well, I invited all these companies in. They all did their demonstrations for us, and I was blown away, right? Because there's some really good salespeople out there, and they really are good at making a pitch for their product and what their strong points are. And I was just overwhelmed by the pros and cons and the differences between them. And then the other thing that really struck me is, what if you know, we missed a really good product because the presenter wasn't that good, or vice versa, right? There's some great presenters that can make their product look amazing, but the product may not be that good. So we were very nervous about that. And I said, all right, well, based on all that, we need to regroup and get some help. So I went back to my senior management. I said, you know what, this is a much bigger task than us just looking at stuff and picking one out. It affects the whole organization. There's a lot of things to consider. I need some help. So we went out, and it took quite a while from January 2017. There was a good stretch of time there where we actually had to do an RFP of consultants. So I put together an RFP. We met with we had 3 different consultants come in that we interviewed, and we wound up selecting the Barclay Advisory Group for in our case. They're out of Chicago. It's Larry Barclay is the gentleman that's, you know, he's been in the industry for many years. So we were very pleased. I had some good recommendations for utilizing his services. So we brought him in, and he had a whole different approach that we just, you know, we said, all right, well, let's follow that approach. And one of them was, you really need engagement from everybody involved. You have to get everybody involved. Otherwise, we could pick whatever we want, and if you don't have the engagement of everybody, you're not going to have a successful rollout. So he came in, we conducted interviews with 60 stakeholders. So we brought in all the big facilities customers that are out there. We brought in the central administration group. We brought in the IT folks. Many people across the FM organization all interviewed to find out what would they expect in a new system. So that was data gathering from the end users, and it was getting their involvement. So in April 2017, after we had completed all the interviews and all those, what we then embarked on was this business process design. Because the theory is that, well, how can you pick a product until you know what your process is? And we said, well, we need to know what the system can do before we can figure out the process. And we were told that, no, really what you want to do is figure out your process first, then find a solution that can best meet your process. So that's what we embarked on. We put the whole selection thing on hold, and we embarked on this whole business process review of how we wanted to do business in facilities management across the whole organization. So this is Dwayne Hinkling, who's a contractor partner with Larry Barclay. He came in, facilitated 2 full days of design sessions, and this was a big investment. I mean, I hired a bus. We put all of our trades folks on a bus, like 25 people involved with this, and put them on a bus, and we went off site, and we went into a room, and he facilitated 2 full days of trades workers. What are your pain points? What are the problems? What can we solve? How are we going to do this? So here's some of the team right here, you know, whiteboarding everything, diagramming out what we want it to do. All right, going through the whole session here, and then we all convened on the end of the second day to come together to find all of our findings, and then we mapped out our process. How do we want to do business? Okay, so the outcome of that was a detailed, how do we want to do business? Work order management process, materials handling, preventive maintenance, and that's what we detailed out, is how we want that to work. So that was used to inform what we put into the RFP. So that was the next stage of this, was the actual development of the RFP. And one of the lessons learned on this is we went a little overboard, I think, on the RFP. We put the vendors through kind of a rough response, because we, you know, just on the functional requirements alone, we had 952 functional requirements in the RFP, and that was just one section of the RFP. But anyway, we finally got it all pulled together. Now this was coming, you know, I took Jen's RFP, I had 7 different universities volunteered their RFPs to us, so we took all of those, went through them all, and tried to take the everything we could get out of them, we took out of them and put into our RFP. And we got that out the door in June of 2017. And one thing I really want to emphasize here is that the requirements that we put into our RFP are unique and specific to Brown, right? So your requirements and what you're doing might be very different, so the end selection that you might come to could be very different. So I just want to clarify that, and I had this input came from the vendors that saw this presentation that said, hey, make sure you clarify that this is for Brown. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. And like I said, we did a little overboard on the functional requirements. That's one lesson learned, that's for sure, because scoring it is where the real pain is. Because it took several hours because we had multiple people scoring the results. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So here's what we had. We had 9 proposals that we had to evaluate, okay? There's 8 on that list there because one of them was just a space only, and we did evaluate the space module only for FM Systems, who's here, and that was evaluated against all the other space components, but it was put aside because we didn't know if we would need that, depending on what other product we selected that it would match up with. Okay, so that's why it's not on this list. So let me run through what I have here. This is Accruent, AssetWorks. This is eBusiness Strategies, which is a reseller, if you will, for Maximo. And then eBusiness Strategies also quoted on Tririga. So we actually had 3 quotes from them. One was a pure play Maximo that we would match up with a space system of our choice. And then they quoted on Tririga by itself, the full product, both maintenance and space. And then they also quoted on a Maximo Tririga combination, where we'd use Maximo for maintenance and Tririga for space, because that's big out there in the industry too. So that one company had 3 different proposals effectively that we had to evaluate. The next one down is JLL, is a reseller for Arquebus. And that was for the entire product suite, not just for space. That was for maintenance and space. And then NGKF, which has changed their name since, which is now NKF, which is a Newmark Knight and Frank. They're a reseller for Maximo and Arquebus. So we had the Maximo with Arquebus space combination. Okay, so that's the one that I was really interested in because Princeton uses that, and they're great. So I was like, I've seen their operation. I'm like, I want to do that. So that was interesting. And then Plan On, who was for us, the newcomer out there, all right? And then TMA, who's pretty entrenched in the industry out there as well. So the results, we took the RFP, and this was the sections of the RFP that are right over here, okay? This is how we scored it, how we weighted the RFP. There's a whole section in there, tell us about your company and about your people. Give us, the detailed section was kind of all the security type of questions about the software and the cloud versus on-premise, because we were evaluating both on-premise and cloud at the time, because we didn't know if the cloud version would be as feature-rich as the on-premise version, so everybody had to quote on both. So just think how many we had to assess. And then the narrative section was what I would call would be probably the most relevant of the RFP for us. The narrative section was where we wrote in paragraph form a question or an issue that we need to solve. How are you going to solve this issue that we are encountering? So that, and what does your solution do to solve this? So that's where we put kind of our pain points that we were looking to solve. And that was the most revealing for us, and that's why we gave it a 30% weighting based on the responses. Functional requirements, I told you that was the 952, kind of the, can your product do this out of the box? Yes, no, customization, or something in between. And then the pricing was 20% of the weighting as well. So the results of scoring all those RFPs across, 15 people spent the time reading through these things and scoring them. And I had to throw some out because I could only take the ones that did everything. And that was the rule going up front. If you're going to score a section, you know, whatever section of the RFP that's your area of expertise, you have to do it for all of them. Otherwise, I can't use your score. So 15 people scored all of these things across all proposals. All that was put into a very elaborate spreadsheet that's been developed. And a lot of the responses that we had back from the vendors came back to us in a spreadsheet forms that I provided to the vendors that was all locked down, so they could only fill in the fields with only the right, you know, with their answers. And that way I could feed that data into the master spreadsheet. And here are the results of that. So we had hoped to only bring in 3 vendors from the RFP for demos. And what happened was, you can see Accruent scored really high here because they were most closely aligned with what we were currently doing. And we're using the mobile product that's plugged onto that, and that's our user base was used to that, so everything looked good, and it got great scores. AssetWorks, pretty high score here. You can see where that came in. PlanOn scored really high here as well. So those 3 came in, and those were the 3 that I went to the team with. And then the result of that, after we met as a team to review the results and who we were going to bring in for demos, the operations folks said, well, we really, you know, this is an IWMS, the PlanOn. Accruent's an IWMS. AssetWorks is an IWMS. We want to look at a point solution as well. And they want to look at Maximo and Archibus. So we brought in NGKF, was the 4th one that we brought in. And the scoring also reflects that, because we wanted to take a look at the Maximo Archibus combination. So those are the 4 that were invited in for the demos. How are we doing on time? What time does this go? 4:15? Okay. So, so here it is. You have the 3 IWMS solutions that were coming in, and then the point solution, which was the combination of Maximo and Archibus. Next thing was coming up with the demonstrations. And the demonstrations, what we learned, again, through Larry Barkley, consulting with him, and also I got your scripts that you did as well, Jen, was really, let's spell out exactly what we want each vendor to do, so they all are playing off the same sheet of music, so we can compare apples to apples. So we put this together, we put some pretty stringent rules on it, we put time frames on it, we built out the agenda for it, and we said, okay, your team, each company came in and we gave them 2 full days. So again, this is a big investment, right? We had to bring our whole evaluation team in. I hired out a whole room. I brought in 2 big monitors, with, you know, set up a table in the middle with a switch box on it so that you could have multiple computers hooked up and tablets hooked up for the demos. And everybody was given evaluation packages and with ground rules on it. And then the vendors were told, you know, you have 26 scenarios that we've developed, and each grouping of scenarios is for a different area within the organization. And we're giving you this amount of time, and we're putting it on a timer. So we actually had a timer up there that they had to stick to, otherwise you get buzzed like Michelle was doing today. So that was interesting, because now you're asking them to do the exact same thing, and when you see them side by side, you really see the differences. And then the results of the evaluation scoring. There's 2 sets of results that we did. The first thing I wanted to know from everybody was, just from your gut, based on watching all 4 demonstrations over 8 days, tell me your first, second, third, fourth choice, and write down some comments. And that's that word cloud I showed you at the beginning. So that was the first thing that they did. And here are the results of doing that exercise. And it became very clear, okay, what was happening. So the scoring here for NKF, they didn't get any votes for first, okay? Accruent had 2 votes for first. Plan On had 14 votes for first. Asset Works, 10. All right? But you can see, you know, second, third, fourth, right? But what you get out of this very quickly is you start to narrow this down pretty quickly. All right? So really, from this, it's a two-horse race. And kind of everybody knew that at the end of the 8 days. You know, everybody kind of had that in their heads. Okay, this is really what we're looking at. But these are close, because if you for Plan On and Asset Works are neck and neck almost on that. So that's really what we were getting down to. And this was from 28 contributors. 28 people filled out the evaluation sheets and sat through all 8 days of the demos, because you had to do all 8 days of the demos in order for me to accept your score. Because some people sat in on 2 days, I couldn't accept their score because it wouldn't have been equal. And then here's the actual breakdown of who scored what. And I showed this to the team. Again, this was the presentation to the team so that everybody could see how everybody else voted and where they stood, okay? And you know, we have some non-FM people in here. We have some of our partners in here. We have some of our central folks, so they were involved in the whole evaluation process as well. And this is the evaluation form that everybody was given. You know, they could do this electronically or on paper, whatever was easy for them. I gave them both, you know, the choice, and then they could just submit everything to me. But basically, we were scoring it on ease of use and on functional compliance, right? How easy did it look like it was to use, and did it meet the requirements we put into the script of the demo? Okay, and that's the scoring we gave them, you know, again, so everybody was working on the same sheet of music here, what 1 through 5 means for each of those categories. And that's the scoring results of the evaluation. So, ease of use, okay, functional compliance, and then we also had on the form for the end of each day, rate what you thought about just in general, what you thought about the company, and what you thought your overall satisfaction with how the whole presentation went and with the product, okay? So here again, the actual scoring actually matches everybody's kind of gut submission back, because they hadn't seen the results of the scoring. They just sent the gut reaction in first, and then here's the scoring that actually matches that. But you can see the Plan On and Asset Works, we're running neck and neck, pretty close here. They distanced themselves from the other two contenders here, so we really became down to the final two that we have to really weigh as a team as to who we're going to bring in. So now we take the analysis deeper to really understand what's going on. So I put a little legend on here so you can see what all these little characters mean on this chart. So let me explain the first chart over here. The first chart over here is the ease of use and functional compliance combined, the scoring of those things put together. And these are the scenarios. So scenarios 1 through 13 on that script were operations-based. All the operations folks. That's the things that were related to them: work order management, preventive maintenance, et cetera. The next one was on the system itself and on reporting capabilities. And then 17 through 22 were all space-related. Space tracking, you know, integration with CAD, with the system, and indirect cost recovery, that kind of stuff. And then business support, which is the payroll, accounts payable, purchasing features, were the scenarios at the end here. So here's the scoring for Asset Works and for Plan On. And just by pure numbers, when you combine ease of use and functional compliance, you can see, again, the scores are pretty close. But you could see that, in this case, Plan On edged out Asset Works in this case, for us. Again, I have to qualify that. That's based on our specific requirements. And then here's a further breakdown here. Asset Works, ease of use, Plan On ease of use, and then the different areas. Again, Plan On 1 on the ease of use. And then for the functional compliance, when you look at just that, Asset Works won out there for the operations folks because they had some stuff right out of the box that was more closely aligned with what our trades guys needed to do. So they won out on that scoring in that area. And same thing with business support, they won out in that area because they had more general ledger capabilities in the product than what Plan-On had. That was 16 people, contributors to that. So here's what we knew at the time. We ruled out the on-premise very quickly once we saw the cloud product. We were, all right, well, cloud products are clearly equal or better than all the on-premise, so we're ruling out on-premise. That we knew. It was definitely cloud. And we knew we wanted an IWMS at that point because we had ruled out the NKF solution. And then it was still a tough choice, and there were a lot of factors to still consider. These are the discussion points we went through as a team. Again, there's 30 people sitting in the room that went through this whole thing, and we opened it up for discussion to say, okay, we're down to the finalist. Let's talk about this now. This is above and beyond the scoring and anything else. So both challenges, both solutions are going to be extremely difficult to implement because we have such an integrated system that we're going to have to replace all those integrations. And then ease of use versus the functionality. We were being told that ease of use will win out over functionality. And I think in this case, we took that to heart, that we really wanted that ease of use a little bit more over some of that. We gave up some what we thought functionality for that ease of use. And that's the GUI of it. The product, we found for us that the product across all modules for Plan-On was consistent. As you go from screen to screen to screen, the layout's the same, it looks the same, whereas some of the other products, you jump to a different module and it had been stitched in and you could see the difference in the menu structure and how it went in. And then configuration, it was highly configurable solution as far as getting granular down to the field level. Additional discussion points that we went through. So we wanted something that was future-proof, and we felt that Plan-On excelled in that area as far as the research they were doing for integration with GIS and DIM and IoT. And, I asked the group, I said, what does Brown FM want to be? Do we want to be just another FM shop and just do our jobs and get by, or do we want to be best in class? And everybody was like, we want to be best in class. If we're going to do this, we want to be best. So that was a big driver for why we were willing to take this risk on, it really came down to Plan-On was sort of an unknown for us, and AssetWorks was kind of a key player out there in the market. That was almost like the safer bet. But we were looking at these features here that really had an impact on it. Cost was somewhat of a consideration, but it was not enough differential that it would really sway the decision either way. And then the other thing is we could leverage this, the solution with other departments. So there's other departments that want to use this solution. So that's in the roadmap. Our central IT group is really interested in using this for tracking all their assets, all their switches on campuses, and because they're not happy with their product. So that's a candidate possibility. And then what else? And then the last one here about the company probably had one of the biggest impacts. Plan-On came in with their team and they were excited, they were eager, they were hungry for the business. And that really shone when we compare them against everybody that came in to do the demos, and they were well prepared, they put the effort in, they did the work. And that stood out with everybody that was on the team. So this was the remaining process. We got to a point where we said, okay, is everybody in agreement? We had a few people that said, no, we want AssetWorks, and no, but when it was all said and done, everybody said, all right, Plan-On's the selection we'll put forward, and we'll live with that. The ones that wanted AssetWorks, they said, we're fine with that selection. We agree. And that's beautiful. We had everybody bought into it. And then our director of operations at the time said, you know what? At this point, we could go with either product, and I'm sure we can make them work. And that was beautiful, because that's true. We would make either one work. So the next piece was get the approval from senior administration, negotiate the contract, get the team going, get the project going. So In January of 2018, I presented this to senior administration, went around the table afterwards, everybody said, thumbs up, go. Perfect. And then we negotiated the contract by the end of January, and then we didn't kick off the project until the end of April. So we're 3 months into the project now, and we're getting, there's many people involved. This was a slide that from Plan On that shows kind of what you saw Fred probably talk a little bit about today, but these are all the things that they're looking at and thinking about, and this was some of that future-proof aspects of the product that we really liked. And that's what I have for you. So I'll open it up if there's any questions. And I think we have a couple more minutes here. Yes? Do you mind if I give you this? Okay. Are we using Plan On for space? Yes. We're going live with maintenance management and space and probably events all at the same time for the event. We're using it for events management as well. That's for phase 1. Those 3 modules would be live. And then our future phase beyond that would be capital projects. And then there's all sorts of wishes and dreams for beyond that as well. So, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Evaluation process, doing the scoring like that?
Yeah.
That must have been pretty arduous.
Yeah, I didn't want to go down the path of opening up the spreadsheet to show you that. But I mean, I have it so that, you know, the weightings that I showed you, I can change the weighting and it updates all the scoring. So like, I wanted to see, what if I weighted it at 100% on each category? You know, see how it lands. And then what if I change, you know, the weighting, you know, 50 here and 20 here and 30, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just play with it and see how the results. And, you know, any way I sliced it, it kept coming to plan. Anyway, you know, it's like,
Well, I mean, that means you did a heck of an evaluation, that's for sure, right?
So.
It's a tool that worked for you guys.
yeah, right. And that's what I make sure that worked for us. You know, it could be very different for another
Few
organization.
criteria.
Yes. Yeah.
I may be emailing you for your RFP on that. I'm looking into it. I almost asked a question for her. I was thinking about this. What do you think would happen? This is a very hypothetical question. If, well, what was it you're using before Famous?
We're using Famous now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Famous is our current
too.
system.
Yeah, if you had something like Famous being one of the finalists, I was thinking of this scenario. I have, we use AssetWorks, we use AIM, and there are a lot of pains with AIM.
Yeah.
But if we do something like this and AIM comes up there, I think I was considering how much the resistance to change on the selection team, on especially the operations guys, would affect the rating. Because, so okay, well, in your case, when you're a finalist, your current system was not there. So it was a change no matter what.
That's right. It was a change even if we stuck to the same product. The new version of the product was completely different.
Okay.
So it's very different scenario. But for you, on that scenario, that say they're the finalists, which I suspect they would be, against someone else, right?
Yeah.
They would have to be, whoever you would consider going to, would have to be far enough advanced from that one that would outweigh the pain of switching from two different products. So you'd have to see probably more separation
Yeah.
to justify making that kind of a change.
It's a 10, 15 point difference is probably not enough to justify.
Exactly.
And that's one of the fears I had, is that and that separation is, I won't have enough separation just because the mentality would be, oh, wait.
So then the only reason you have to do an RFP then is to get it
Use it as a tool to beat them down.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's what it
Yeah,
comes
it does
down
come
to.
down to it at some point.
Yeah, and I thought at the end, our leadership is we have a very interesting leadership that they will go with, people will follow our vice president,